Hi, John.
Hey, Alex.
Do you know what I hate?
What do you hate?
The human body.
Really?
Yeah. After watching Hard Ticket to Hawaii, I never want to see a pair of big 80s tits again.
I don't think that's true at all.
It's not.
It's an areological, autoerotical, tubular, bobular joy, an exposular, regional, bachical, pouchular, fun for girl and boy, a latissimal, dorsical, hung like a horsical, caliphalygical ball,
The most bunular funula.
Fruit of the lumula.
Frenchical tongular.
wabada, bobular, funnular, bunular, fruit of the lubular, frenchical, tongular, wabada, bobular, testicle, orbical, snorkel, sububular, tosabaticular ball. Hey!
Amy Sedaris' own. And before we introduce that, let's bring our guest on, Rojan. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Well, you know, living the dream of this movie.
Well, there are many more in the Andy Sedaris world,
Yes.
so.
So I thought I'd seen this. I mean, I thought I'd seen clips. I was familiar with the film. And then I realized it was a different Andy Sedaris movie that I had seen. So a lot of this was brand fucking new to me. And I tell you, it was not what I thought it was going to be. Also, so John, his complaint of when we watch Marvel movies is that they're all too long. This movie being 4.5 hours long, really tough.
The group of people that I watch movies with, we've become regular bad movie watchers on a regular basis. And it got to a point where we started a Facebook group called Cinema La Bad, which, by the way, anybody listening to the show, they're more than welcome to join it.
Oh, hell yeah.
We started a Facebook group purely because we got to a point we weren't sure what movies we had watched anymore. So we just started posting them. And the next thing I know, all these people started joining and invites and stuff, and it's become quite the thing. But we have categories, and when we watch a movie where it might be like an hour and a half movie that feels like it's 7 hours long, we call that category, this movie warps time and space.
Yep.
There was a lot of movies that were made in the 70s and someone in the 60s or in the psychedelic era, and some of those movies are pretty trippy. There's a lot of vampire movies and things like that that are out there that are like that. And we call those movies, these movies are on different drugs than we are. So we've got all these weird categories and stuff. Sedaris falls into, he is the king of the generic bad action 80s movies. And me and a buddy of mine, we don't refer to these movies as bad movies. We refer to them as flawed gems for the most part. So, you know, but yeah, some Sedaris movie, like some of his movies have that effect on you, but like we know when we were sitting down, after we got into Sedaris, we started, okay, we know what we're getting into. You know, there's all these hallmarks for an Andy Sedaris movie. But yeah, I can relate.
It's not, you know, I enjoyed a lot of this. Not to you know, spill the whole review at the start. There was a lot of really fun shit happening here. There was parts that just, they forgot that they were making a movie, I guess, and they just went like, I guess we're just going to watch them go into a restaurant for a bit, and lots of walking and hilarious close-ups of tits that like somehow are the least sexual boobs I've ever seen in my life, which is like remarkable.
Lots of silicone.
Yeah.
That's the thing for me is that, like, so I had seen a bunch of Andy Sedaris movies, like back when Cinemax was a thing. Like they would show up a lot there. And so you would watch it because, like, oh my gosh, you know, it was pre-internet. So you're like, oh, I'm going to see boobs. Then there was some action and it was all pretty corny. So there's a certain amount of like weird nostalgia I have for these movies because, like, there's like, they don't really make them like this anymore. Or if they do, they're buried under, you know, everything else that's out there. And yeah, there's a certain amount of like faffing about and just doing whatever. But I got such a huge kick out of these. And yeah, like I said, it made me sort of weirdly nostalgic. But like watching it this time, I was very struck by how so much of the nudity is just like casual. Like it's very much like, yeah, I'm just going to take a shower real quick and while, you know, rinse off my bathing suit and here we go. Or like, we're just going to hang out in the jacuzzi topless and have a plot
there's
element,
a few scenes,
you know?
like that you're like, why are they'll come in, sit down in the hot tub, pick up like diamonds or something like that, talk about the diamonds, and then get right back out of the hot tub. And you're like, I mean, I am a fan of the female form and boobs and stuff, but you're kind of sitting there going, why did they do that?
Yeah.
Well, there actually was a reason why he did a lot of that stuff, but
Because he was a sleazeball.
To first let you know, well, no, actually, he comes across that way, but he actually wasn't.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that were in those movies. Well, first off, let me preface this by saying that Andy Sedaris, for whatever reason, is kind of my thing. I I fall down these weird rabbit holes with directors like Russ Meyer, Andy Sidaris, Godfrey Ho.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's another show entirely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of some of these, like the guy who made Birdemic. You know, some of these movies you watch them and you go, how the? Can I swear on the show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You watch this and you go, how the fuck did this get made? Like there's got to be a story here to this movie or to these movies. What's the backstory to how this happened? Whereas most people will watch a movie and go, wow, this is really bad. Now, granted, I have seen a lot of movies that are really bad where it's like, I don't want to know the backstory to this. But Sidaris was this guy that I think he made, I'm having a stroke right now. I can't remember if it was 10, 12
It's at least
movies.
12 because they used to sell a 12-pack
I think
DVD
it's 12
combo.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
It was called the Bullets, Bombs,
That's
and
the
Babes.
one, yeah.
I kind of fell into this rabbit hole with this guy, and he turned out to be a pretty fascinating individual. And his ideas about how he made these movies. He used to be the guy who ran Wide World of Sports. He did all these, he did a lot of sports programming, a lot of college basketball tournaments, a lot of stuff like that. And then, so he just kind of made friends in the industry. He also did a movie called Seven, which was made back in 1976. Not the same Seven as the more modern one.
Yeah, it's like Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, but they're it's two women and they're topless the whole time.
That movie, there wasn't a whole lot of nudity in it.
What's in the boobs?
So what he did, part of the reason those movies were that way is because he, when he started making these movies, he's like, I want to make some movies. I want them to be action filled. I want them to be fun. The females in almost every movie, the main characters, the heroes in the movie are almost always the females. And so what he did is he wanted to make these movies. He couldn't get a loan for it, so he literally mortgaged his house to get enough money to make these movies. And during the week, he'd be running Wide World of Sports and his sports programming, and then he'd fly out to Hawaii where they filmed all these movies at. And he did that because Hawaii was cheap. It was beautiful. You know, they had lots of exotic locations. It was sunny there all the time, so you have to worry about the weather conditions. And the other thing is when he was hiring for actors, he didn't go out and look for normal actors. So what he did is he wanted to get attractive women, but he didn't want to do any nudity from the waist down. It's always just boobs top up, you know, because he always, as sleazy as he seems, everybody that worked with him, they all loved working with him. They were like, no, he was very respectful of us. He was very respectful of the scenes and stuff we were doing. The only movie that was kind of difficult to watch was the very first one, which was Malibu Express. And there's a rape scene in there. It's kind of like, but he really did. That was literally his first movie doing it on his own. But his wife actually did a lot of the production.
Yes.
It wasn't so much Andy. It was his wife who did a lot of it. He just kind of came in and, you know, did what he had to do, but his wife ran a lot of it. And that was another reason why the female actors, it turned into a point where the Playboy models and eventually even Penthouse Playmates were coming to them and saying, hey, we like these movies. We have boobs. We look nice. And Andy would hire these women because he was like, you know what? We only need to have soap opera caliber of actors. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking for, you know, super high-end actors and stuff. We want to keep this stuff cheap. And even though there was topless scenes, like even the sex scenes are terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're really, really funny. Like they're terribly funny bad. They're unfathomable.
Well, wait, let's stop. Because I need to talk about that one sex scene. There is a spot where
they're literally 2 feet
yes,
apart from one
their
another.
genitals are farther apart than ours are on the Skype call. Like it is, I don't understand. Like the geography of that sex scene is fucking baffling.
He's just happy to be there.
Yeah, that exactly. Yeah, you could tell in the beginning where he was like unsure of his boundaries by the way the movies were made. As the movies went on, he got more comfortable with it. The actors got more comfortable with it. But for a couple of movies, he's like, I don't want these people right on top of each other because I don't know how this is going to work. So they tried to film it in weird ways, and it just didn't work. But it was laughably funny. It just like the whole movie. Like since we're talking about Hard Ticket to Hawaii, the whole movie is laughably funny. I mean, you've got a movie about. Like the main chick that's in the movie, Donna Spear, she was a Playboy model. She was in for like 8 movies, and after she left, the movies really started going downhill. But she was a Playboy model. The other girl that was in the movie was a Playboy model. The
other girl. Sorry, this just like shocked me because Roger, we haven't talked in a while, but my brain is melted and I remember nothing anymore. But that other girl showed up, and I'm like,
that's probably good.
I remember her face. And I paused and I waited. And I'm like, I think that was Charles's girlfriend on an episode of Charles in Charge. I looked it up and it was fucking her.
It may
And
have
it's like,
been.
oh my
Nice.
God,
Yeah.
I just pulled that shit from fucking like 1987 or whatever the hell that show was on.
And that's the beauty of a lot of these bad movies. You'll watch these and you'll go, wait a minute, is that such and such? Is that so?
It was so weird, yeah.
The guy who plays Tarkin, who's right now, I can't remember his name, and it's driving me nuts. I can't believe I can't remember it. The guy who plays Grand Admiral Tarkin in Star Wars.
Oh, Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing. Yeah, we've gone and watched a lot of Hammer horror movies, and you go back and you see these old movies with Peter Cushing, and the guy still looks the same in the old
Yes.
movies as he does in Star Wars, and you're
He
like,
just picked an age and stuck with it.
yeah, he's kind of like Patrick Stewart. It's like this guy has always looked this way.
Yeah.
Like, did this guy look this way when he was 16 years old? You know, but he's one of those people. But that's the joy of watching some of these movies is you see people like Danny Trejo showed up in one of the Andy Sidaris movies.
Really?
That makes total sense.
Yeah, so you see these people and you're like, what the hell, you know? And again, you're like, what is the backstory to this? How did, where, you know, it's you laugh at these movies, but if you pick the right ones and you go down the right rabbit holes, you discover a lot of really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just one of those things. You what was the guy from Chips that was he was in a couple of them. He was in Guns.
Oh, Eric
It was,
Estrada, I think is in.
yeah, Eric Estrada. That was another thing about Andy Sidaris movies. You'd see an actor in one movie and he was a bad guy. In the next movie, he would be a good guy, playing a different character, same actor. And that was not uncommon. But again, back in those days, when you were doing direct-to-video movies and you were cranking them out almost like Grindhouse movies, that wasn't that uncommon of a thing to see, like in martial arts movies and stuff. One guy would be a hero in one movie, next movie he'd be back, but he'd be playing a different character. But
Yeah,
again,
I mean,
you go
same
back
thing
to
happened
like,
in Unmasking the Idol, where the villain in the sequel to that, Order of the Black Eagle, was like the sidekick in Unmasking the Idol.
I
The
forgot about that
ponytail
one.
guy in this feels like he could easily be a shithead martial artist in another movie. You know, like just being
Well, I
the
mean, he was a
sleaze-
shithead martial artist in
No,
this one, but
he
he
would-
just be like a bad guy.
No, he was a
Are you
typical
talking about the
80s
guy that
in-
got shot in the
Yes,
Jeep?
the guy that got shrapnel to the tit in the Jeep. Third largest cup
point
size in the
blank
movie.
machine gun?
He seems like he could easily be the bad guy. Like he runs the rival dojo that took it too real.
Well, I mean, he kind of looks like the bad guy in Karate Kid 3.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Mr. Miyagi was also in one of the Andy Sidaris movies. He actually got some action.
Well, he was
the
like
younger-
bumming around
yeah.
Hawaii as an actor, that dude, for like a long time apparently. So when he died, I watched like a whole bunch of like tribute videos to him because like for some reason I was like really upset that Pat Morita was dead, even though I barely cared. But yeah, apparently he was like just some laid back improv actor in Hawaii that just got high and hung out.
Nice. Yeah, which I mean, like that's a great thing about like I was reading about the making of these movies, and I saw an interview with his wife. I think it's Arlene Sidaris.
Yeah, Arlene. Yeah.
Who was absolutely just hilarious and delightful. And yeah, they're very straightforward about it. Like no one was ever asked to do anything they were uncomfortable doing. No one was pressured into doing nudity or anything like that. Like it was all, that's part of the reason, like you said, like you got like Playboy models because they were fine with that and they could do some decent acting. And I like, there was a quote from apparently in this interview with the Bristol Bad Film Club when talking about just shooting in Hawaii. He's like, a lot of people think it's cute to work 20-hour days, but it's not. It's stupid. The dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life was watching Castaway, which is a terrific picture with Tom Hanks. However, they went to some small island that they had to take 100 boats to get to every morning. They had to leave at 3 in the morning to get there at 5 a.m. Then they'd wade to shore where they built a little city with toilets and things. They could have gone to Molokai. We were shooting on the golf course. We'd be in the jungle and turn around and there was the country club. 200 yards out from the hotel, there were mountains and the ocean. Meanwhile, they went to some little island. It's absolutely stupid to take a crew down there and risk their lives every morning.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And that just made me fall in love with him even more. Where I'm like, hell yeah, this guy's like, look, I just want to make a movie with action and boobs, and I'm also lazy. Perfect.
And he wants to make it cheap.
Yeah.
That was the other thing too. They had a budget, and he did the best that he. That's one of the things I respect about the guy. Like, you knew what you were. Again, you knew what you were getting into with the Sidaris movie. You know that there's going to be boobs. You know there's going to be some kind of outrageous vehicle chase scene, which is like a hovercraft and a jet ski, or two boats down a canal, or a helicopter and a boat or something. You always had that. You always had explosions, not Michael Bay explosions, but explosions of some kind. That became the game. It was like, all right, let's predict how many explosions and what's going to blow up in an Andy Sidaris movie. You would have that. You would always have some kind of remote control vehicle of some kind or another in every movie, be a boat, a car, a helicopter. They used remote control airplanes a lot, and they did that to save budget. When they had flying scenes with an airplane, they would use an RC airplane. And it turned out he knew somebody he was a big RC enthusiast, and he knew somebody that owned a hobby shop of some kind or another. So he'd be like, call him, hey, I need there's some kind of an RC air show going on or something. Can we film at it or whatever? So he was really good at using what resources he could find. And for a while, you'd watch the movie and you'd even see some of the same guns reappearing in different movies. Just stuff like that.
Does the rocket launcher make a lot of other appearances?
No, the rocket launcher, we'll get to that. I do love the rocket launcher, though.
It's so great.
It was literally 4 tubes of pieces of PVC, some cardboard, and some kind of a handle or something. And justice for the Love Doll, by the way, because the Love Doll did not deserve to die. For no reason at all, they killed the Love Doll.
I have no idea what you're saying right now.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, the bit with where they use the rocket launcher.
Yes.
The Love Doll.
That was,
I'm sorry.
Well,
I literally, I thought you were saying Love Dow, and I'm like, is that one of the, because there's a woman in this movie that
Peter
I don't know
Lovedow.
who she was, and I'm like, oh, did she have a name? There's that one lady with nunchucks that's just kind of standing in the back and posing.
They literally hand her the nunchucks from off screen, and you see the arm come out and hand her the nunchucks.
Yes.
I was like, oh, did she have a, the Love Doll? No, the Love Doll was the greatest thing I've ever seen in any movie ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and almost got them an X rating, but we can talk about that when we get to
Because of the Love Doll? Wow.
So, yeah. So let's describe the movie here and get everybody an idea of what. If you have not seen Hard Ticket to Hawaii, you can find it for free on YouTube. I know it's for free on Tubi, and I'm going to give everybody a little piece of advice. If you're going to watch it on Tubi and you don't want to have ads, you can download a browser called Brave. It's got like a little lion head, and do not install whatever Google asks you to install. If you don't install that, you can watch Tubi and you won't get any commercials. Yep. And the Sedaris movies are all on Tubi for free. So but if you do, by all means, I went out, I love the guy's movies so much, I went out and bought the box set. Actually, I had a buddy gave it to me for a gift. But Hard Ticket to Hawaii, skip the first movie. It's not that great. Go right to Hard Ticket to Hawaii, start there. It's about these government secret agent girls. They never actually say the agency that they work for.
No, it's always the agency.
And they're the agency, correct. And
wait, do they both work for that? Because I got to admit, I didn't understand a fuck. Because the one's a civilian, though. They say that a lot.
Yes.
Correct.
But they both work for the same agency. So how is one a civilian and one's not?
Because witness protection put her into the agency.
Oh, of course.
Correct.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Yes. No, you're not. It doesn't explain that real well. You got to piece that together.
She testified against the mob, and so as part of her new identity, they put her with the agency, and then as part of the agency's cover, she is a tour guide.
Yes. And she also works for the their cover is that they do a cargo delivery service with a plane between the islands, and they're based off of Molokai Island. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I can't remember. So what they're actually doing is they're actually they're government agents, and the one girl is a civilian working there in the witness protection program, and she's not in any of the other movies. She's only in the one movie. So there's actually 2 movies going on here. There's a dumb movie wrapped up into an even dumber movie. So it's kind of Inception on the dumbest of levels.
Yeah.
So what you have is the original movie, the main movie, is that apparently some kind of a diamond heist or something goes wrong, and the 2 women come across these diamonds. And there's another subplot where they have to fly this couple on a romantic getaway to an island, but they're also transporting a snake to some kind of a wildlife refuge.
You mean the snake with toxic cancer?
Yeah. Yes, I'm actually going to see if I can find exactly what it was called. I should have had it written down. I can pull it up.
I did while you're looking that up. There's nothing I love more, and I'm not shitting on this. I am enamored by how unreal the movie is, and of course you're not expecting real, but it's really easy to get into Hawaii. Snakes, it is
in a wooden crate that's made to hold peaches.
Yeah, with that shitty plastic strapping, you'd get boxes of paper with.
Yeah.
So the snake that they were supposed to take was supposed to be a ball python being sent to a exhibit or something like that just for a weekend. What they accidentally took was a mutant cancer-infected rat-eating saliva-spitting snake, which was basically, when you see it, it is one of these rubber snakes, like the big rubber python fake snakes. And that somehow gets loose, so this snake is going around killing people and eating them on the island. But it's only got a few days left to live anyways. And why that was in the movie, there really is no point for it. So the 2 girls from the Molokai airplane find these diamonds. They get embroiled into this criminal underworld.
Rogan, sorry, can I stop you there? Because we skipped a spot that I don't understand, and it's before here. We open with 2 random ass law enforcement guys that are going to
Who find the
a weed farm.
Yes.
And they're like, no,
Yes.
the weed farm's cool. They give me weed, and that we just we don't arrest them. But then there's different drug people that kill them,
Yes, those are the guys that are trying to become the crime lords of
and they were getting
Hawaii.
paid with diamonds.
Something like
but the
that.
diamonds have nothing to do
And-
with the snake.
No, Snake is totally separate.
I was trying to merge because the one guy's afraid of snakes. And I'm like, oh, is that the thing that he's using his worst? Okay, so there's just
No,
they're
they could have
literally
left
unrelated.
the snake subplot out of the movie, and it wouldn't have made a difference to the movie at all.
Because I was
period.
struggling because I also didn't understand the drug thing of why do you have two drug? It's also pot. Whatever. Yeah, sorry. Please continue. This movie was very confusing to me.
Yes, exactly. It's okay. It's understandable. I've watched it, I think, 4 times now. So the girls find the diamonds, and then it turns into a big ordeal with a crime lord. Kibsnap's one of them, so then they got to go rescue her. As this is going on, the snake is going around just eating people. It just shows up at random. There's one scene where they're walking across the yard, and for whatever reason, there's, I think, a plastic garbage can or something buried in the ground.
Yes.
And the snake just kind of rises out of it and looks around and then it goes back down again. It leads up to all these crazy scenes. One of the best scenes in the movie, though, we'll get to the love doll now. There's this high speed. That's another thing. There's Jeeps all over in this movie. And the reason why is because Andy went to one of the car dealerships on the island and said, hey, I'm making a movie. Can we use, and all the vehicles in the movie, a lot of them are Jeeps. By the end of the movie, you're like, what the fuck is up with all these Jeeps? Is there some kind of a Jeep meetup or something? But anyways, so you've got the 2 guys that are brought in to help. They bring in 2 guy agents to help the 2 women agents. They're brought in from off the coast or something like that. One of them is this chiseled ponytail wearing dude, and the other, all of them, this movie is just full of beautiful people. But all of these people are either Playboy models or dirt bike or extreme sports guys. Even the male guys weren't actually actors. They were they were just yeah, they were dirt bike motocross stars and things like that. So there's this scene where they're trying to chase this guy down, and for whatever reason, he starts coming down the hill toward. There's this big road. It's on a hill, and the guy's coming down the hill on a skateboard with a machine gun, holding a love doll as a shield.
Well, you missed earlier
And
when
then
he's on that same hill doing a handstand, being because I think they hired that guy because they found a guy who can do a handstand on a skateboard because it wasn't for his
That
acting.
and his hair was great. But yeah, he does that to scope them out and make sure it's them. Then he gets back into a car with a love doll in the car, and then the car passes them, and then he comes back with the skateboard and a love doll and a gun.
Yeah, and he's riding
he's
with his
passing the
feet
truck-
like a chump.
Yeah. And he shoots the guy point blank range. I think it was with a machine gun. And the guy, it's got so the guy just gets he's just got basically a Band-Aid on his shoulder, but we'll get to that. So the guy goes back uphill, grabs the love doll, and comes back down. And the guy with the ponytail is supposed to be a really bad shot with a gun. So he brings a rocket launcher with 4 barrels. It's a rocket launcher made out of black PVC. They painted black or whatever. And he shoots a rocket at this guy from 10 feet away, blows him up. The love doll flies up into the air, starts floating away. Okay, the love doll's filled with helium. And then he looks up at it and he shoots the love doll with the rocket and blows up the love doll.
Yeah.
With a rocket.
And according to Arlene, that it was the MPAA went, that was too realistic looking.
Wow.
They already blew up the guy. That wasn't a problem. But somehow the love doll was that's a step too far. And so they almost
and the
got
love doll
an X.
did nothing to deserve it.
Yeah.
It was just a love doll.
It was just there.
So this movie, as I said, was super long to me. I just want to compliment it in a way. I don't care how long it is. I got to watch that scene, which was one of the best things I've seen in a shitty movie in a while. Blowing up a blow-up doll with a rocket launcher is just chef's kiss. I mean, you don't get better than that.
Well, it's also because it's this movie, when it tries to be funny, a lot of it is dialogue wise. This very not even vaudeville, but Borscht Belt comedy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's really kind of cheesy, whatever. It's very on its face about it. There's no we know this is stupid. It's this is awesome. And I appreciate it. It'll be silly and do something like that, but it's not done in this wink wink way.
Well, I think because he had a lot of heart in what he was doing.
Yeah, and so
that's why I respect the guy.
Absolutely,
the guy put a lot. He was I need to make a movie. I only have so much money. Let's figure out a way to make this happen. We know the script's not that great. We know we don't have top of the line actors. But we're going to do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
you know, and I'll watch that, and I have a friend of mine, he brought this up too. He's like, you can watch that movie, and you can go watch one of the pre-generated what's becoming happening with Marvel and all this shit with all or Warner Brothers. I love to pick on. I can't stand what they've done with the DC universe, but you see that, and then you see this guy. He's like, listen, I don't have a lot, you know, but I'm gonna do what I can with what I got, and I'm gonna give you an action movie. You're gonna see boobs. You're gonna see guns. You know, and it's just going to be a lot of fun, you know? And
I mean, increasingly, I'm more interested in like, you know, I've developed more and more of a love for like scrappy movies. Like, and this totally has that. Like, this is definitely like, you know, like it is the sort of exploitation side of it where it's like, look, we got guns, we got boobs, let's get butts and seats and do that. But it's like, it's made very earnestly, and like, you can tell they're trying to have fun with it or whatever. Like, it doesn't just seem like, it's just like churned out. It's like you said, it's got like this heart to it that's very endearing for being just like, I mean, if you sit there and watch it, like I said, like when I was watching it as a teen, I just cared about seeing boobs.
Exactly.
You know? But like, you know, it's fun.
You know, you wanted guns and action and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun, you know?
It goes, our snake looks like this, and that's fine. Like that's we know, but whatever. Just have fun with the ride.
Though to be fair, that snake looks 10 times better than those babies in Ezra Miller's The Flash.
Oh yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, exactly.
Sick burn. Sorry.
Yeah.
You brought up Warner Brothers,
really,
and I was like,
your bar wasn't really high there. So. You know, you're kind of grabbing at low hanging fruit on that.
I'm grabbing at low hanging fruit. Sorry, I was just doing lines from this movie.
You know, and at the end of the movie, all this crazy stuff happens, and at the end of another great rocket launcher scene. At the end of the movie, the main character, who is a badass up until the end, where she gets her ass kicked by this guy, and this guy, it's one of those movies where the guy just will not die.
Yes.
He's been shot, he's been stabbed, he's on the ground, you know, he fell onto the arrow should have went through him and fully killed him, and yet he still manages to get up and do the thing. And at this point, the Donna character, she's actually called Donna in the movie as well, she's like, she's all beat up and can't go on and stuff, and she defeats the guy, and then she's laying on the ground, and we go back to the snake. I think the snake explodes out of the toilet.
The toilet has explosion involved, which makes sense.
And you're laughing at this going like, oh my God, it's the snake. And the snake, look, again, as John said, it's, you know, it's a ridiculous looking snake. We know it's a ridiculous looking snake. We know it just exploded out of the toilet, you know. And then the main male actor of the movie bursts through the wall like Kool-Aid Man on a motorcycle on a dirt bike.
Yes.
Pulls out the rocket launcher and shoots a rocket and blows the snake up in the toilet because the snake's just kind of slithering along. There was another scene in the movie where she's like hiding in the closet, basically behind rice paper or something, like a rice paper kind of mesh. And
I was going insane, Rogan.
But you shouldn't, you know.
He pulls out a knife,
you know what you're getting,
and starts lightly knocking the slatted boards on this wicker door while she's setting up like a what are those scuba spear gun things. Like I'm a person of size. I think if I tripped lightly, I would go through that door like without a problem. This is a man that can beat up a CIA agent or whatever agent, who, you know, Booby McFucking Bond. He can kick her ass, but he can't get through a door. It was just, I was baffled. I mean, delightfully baffled, but it is, if you put any form of logic at that scene, it's like smoke starts coming out of places.
Sir, I don't mean to correct you on this, but if you put any form of logic to this movie.
Yeah. I mean, like one of my favorite moments at the beginning is when when Donna and Taryn are, they fly a couple, but beyond transporting the snake and the couple, they get to the island. They're walking around, and it's the same island as where the cops were taken out by the drug dealers. They encounter those same drug dealers. Taryn, I think, has a throwing star in her boot, but more importantly, Donna pulls out some nunchucks and then just throws them at a guy. And that's when I went like, this movie, I'm in good hands. This is going to be so much fun.
Pass me the joint. We're going to have fun.
I don't remember the muscly woman henchman. I don't remember her name. But when she is threatening, when they break into the house to look for the diamonds, she's threatening them by holding like the nunchucks up to her throat like they're a knife.
Yes. Yes.
That's also great. Quick question
if you come
about
near
that.
me, I'm going to push these into her throat.
Yeah, quick question about the muscly henchwoman, because we see her later, like they spend a little section showing her posing with the nunchucks and doing stuff. And I don't know, Alex, I don't know if you noticed. Do you know where she got her imperial conditioning? Like Dr. Yui? Because she has a diamond on her head.
Yeah.
for some reason.
Oh,
in that
yeah.
scene. And that's all I could
No,
think of was
it's-
like, oh, I wonder where she got her imperial condition.
I couldn't respond because I was so mad that I didn't make that joke. Because I even wrote, I wrote about her in my notes, and I pointed out that fucking head tattoo, and I'm like, how did I not come up with the Dune joke? That's my whole thing. You stole my thing, man. But that lady is also baffling because she's like there, but she does absolutely nothing. But she also looks like every other woman in the movie. So it's this really confusing thing of like, is this one of the other women? Because they're never on the screen together until like the very end. Like, is this gonna be like a little trickaroo? Like one of them's playing both sides, but no, it's just apparently David Sedaris really likes. I'm gonna call him David Sedaris 1,500 times. He likes blonde ladies with big hooters.
Well, he got again Playboy models, and that was the look of the time. It was all silicone, the whole
big
shot.
hair.
Yeah, big hair. You were either in a Whitesnake video or you were in Playboy.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what it was. So, but as going back to the gadget thing, I think my favorite unconventional gadget in the movie, I think it was this movie, I believe it was the Frisbee with razor blades in it. Yeah. It slices off the guy's fingers.
All of that is so fantastic because this is a henchman of the main baddie, Seth.
A henchman, I think you mean Shades.
Well, no, the henchman is named Shades.
Yeah.
The big
I know.
Seth.
I just wanted to point out that they bothered to name that guy.
Yeah, I love they call him Shades. We have a file on him.
So
that's
great.
it. But like his whole thing, they spy him. He's guarding the entrance to where the drug den is by beach, and there's a woman that comes up every day and plays frisbee with him. And he plays frisbee while still holding a machine gun. Which is so funny. But it's not until the one of the hunks shows up to try to infiltrate that he's like, oh, I'll take the machine gun off now. Like, I'd feel weird not pointing it at a woman.
So if I may elucidate, if I may get on a soapbox here, as a frisbee player, as a person of frisbee backing, why were they standing 10 feet away from each other? And that's supposed to be impressive. Like, they're like, I think if you've never thrown a frisbee before, that would be an unimpressive throw to each other. And then two, when they attach the razor blades to it, I mean, putting in a lid, look, I'm saying 10 speed would be my guess. 12 speed would be fine, has to be overstable. Because I'm saying you hit that hyzer angle straight out of the side. Of course, I'm talking right-hand backhand.
Obviously.
Right-hand backhand, hyzer angle, 12 speed, maybe a little bit higher. I'm thinking maybe like a Heinberg Destroyer. It's going to take that shit out.
Yeah.
I know no one knows what I'm saying. I just wanted to do that for the one person.
I'm looking at the screen right now. I feel like I'm in the scene for Billy Madison where he says, what you have just said at no point made any kind of coherent sense. We are all no dumber for having heard it. I don't know what you're... I assume that these are kinds of frisbees. You play frisbee golf?
Deep cut frisbee golf references. And I think maybe there's one person that listens that will find them amusing. And that's all I'm doing. I'm talking to the people in the back. I'm talking to the guys, they're not dancing. They're just leaning up against the wall, enjoying themselves, thinking about frisbee golf.
So your major issue is the frisbee with the razor blades.
Yeah, I'm saying putting razor blades on a 1-speed is ridiculous. I mean, maybe an Aerostar. I'm just being stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, I was being stupid before,
I'm imagining we have a friend that works in logistics, and I'm imagining them watching the beginning of this movie where they're loading the crates and being like, this is so inefficient. Here's how I would.
I have 3 different notes about OSHA certification during that scene because I had to learn how to drive a forklift at work, and that guy's bullshit. He'd be fired in a second.
Which, by the way, I cannot begin to describe my love for the opening credits, which are all done by people loading crates, and the crates have cast members' names on them, and it's so clunky. Like it could be so much smoother and fancy, but it's so original, and it's just fun that they did it, and it kind of. It lets you in immediately on the kind of tone of the movie.
And cool that it's a cold open, which I don't remember that being common in the 80s. Of there's a 5-minute opening scene and then it goes to the credits, which I thought was kind of cool for 87 or wherever the fuck this movie came out.
Well, for this kind of thing, I mean, the Coen Brothers Raising Arizona has 15 minutes before the opening credits, but the only reason I bring that up is because we're talking about Hard Ticket to Hawaii, which is just as good.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's comparable to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more like a Barton Fink level, but it's just me.
Like talking about just sort of earnestly just doing it, to the thing where is this a joke or not? I can't tell, but either way, I'm enjoying it. Is at a certain point, the two hunks we mentioned, they're just practicing karate on a boat. They get a message from headquarters basically that's delivered by a food delivery guy. They're expecting sushi, and they said it shows up, and inside the styrofoam package is a sandwich, and inside that sandwich is their mission orders or whatever. And they read it and the other guy goes like, oh man, that stinks. I wish it was sushi. I was really hungry. When the guy's done reading it, he puts it back in the sandwich and then they burn the whole thing.
Yes.
A guy like sets the styrofoam thing up. You burned you could have just eaten the sandwich, but you burned the sandwich.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of brilliance that really adds to this.
That was like,
because you don't like. I'm like, was this like? Was this supposed to be funny? Was this serious? And I like that. I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't want the answer because I'm having fun either way.
That followed up with my bafflement scene of which I thought might be your favorite scene in the movie, where because it's a bad joke and it's racist. Is where the one guy does a weird Confucius says joke while they're sparring.
Right before that scene, yeah.
Holy shit, was that like? I mean, I know it's the '80s, but it's just like, I mean, whatever. I'm not even going to comment on like the race relations that happened in the '80s, but it was like a terrible joke, a bad accent, and like, is this movie trying? I don't know what the movie was trying at that moment, and then following up the sandwich scene almost immediately afterwards. I'm like, yeah, I'm never figuring this movie out. It's never happening.
Well, it's like that. Yeah, that was absolutely acceptable in the 80s, what they were doing there. And it's sort of expected. I mean, it's like, it's lowbrow. Like I said, it's lowbrow, like Catskills kind of humor.
It's rough. That part was rough.
For 80s dads.
But again, they knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. You know, he knew exactly, this is the kind of movie we're going to make. And that was just Andy's style of movie making. And the closest movies I've come to anything like a Sedaris movie would be the Miami Connection.
Oh, yeah.
Which is almost a Sedaris movie, but they're still not quite. They're still not quite the same.
Well, it doesn't have the boobs, and the music in Miami Connection is 100,000 times better than the 30-minute theme song that they have in this movie.
Ticket to Hawaii.
I want that at my funeral, please. It's lovely. It's like celebratory, but it's kind of sad.
Oh, it's so bad.
I think it's great.
Full disclosure: I have a metal Hard Ticket to Hawaii movie poster on my wall.
Hell yes.
So,
yeah. I have like genuinely like kind of fallen in love with these movies. I watched it. I'm in a when COVID happened, I started a movie group with some friends of mine as well. And it's not specifically a bad movie group, but bad movies get sent, and that was one of them. And so I had definitely had fun watching it. Obviously for those purposes, but watching it this time, again, that sort of scrappiness of filmmaking that like it seems a very particular kind of movie that I don't know exists anymore. Like I said, but. It's like exploitive, but it doesn't, or like exploitive and cynical, but it doesn't feel that way. You know what I mean? Like he is operating on the like get butts and seats. This is the kind of thing we're making, but it's also like he's really into it and having fun.
Yeah. Whereas the movies that are made now, it's kind of like the joke's been done. You know, I mean, there's still people that are making bad movies or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. I think Lamageddon was a lot of fun. That was that was a cheesy fun one, but people now they're making them to be bad on purpose, and it's not like I can't watch trauma movies because those movies are made to be bad.
At this point, absolutely, yeah.
There's no real heart or anything in them. Whereas Sedaris, yes, you knew it was a bad movie, but he was also really trying to make movies. He was just doing the best that he could with what he had. You know, he knew he's like, hey, again, you know what this is that I'm doing, but. Hey, let's do it,
Yeah, and I think some of that's like there's a sort of on one hand I enjoy like the democratization of the technology. Like that's cool that people can get their hands on stuff and just make whatever. It does sort of like flood stuff with just all kinds of crap. But it's also like me personally, I just like stuff on film versus more digital stuff. That costs a lot. That takes money, and so there was that bar there. And so I think there's a certain amount of I don't want to say care because there's a lot of shitty movies shot on film, but like it's like there's a little extra work involved in there. It was a little bit more rare, so I think I'm more excited to see someone that was able to make that journey and get that distribution rather than just being like, yeah, we shot something and just threw it on Amazon because we could, like like the Full Moon
exactly,
but, Asylum Pictures or whatever. That's just very cynically like we're gonna make Transmorphers and just shit that out and who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Like you had like people like Russ Meyer who made Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. He like when he was doing his stuff back in the 50s, he had a lot of tits in his movies. He was a big fan of boobs, but he would some of his movies were just like a chick driving around in a car with her boobs hanging out, and you're like, okay, what's this? But again, he was doing what he actually did have heart in what he was doing and stuff. He made some pretty cool movies as well. But again, there was boobs and stuff in there to get people into movie theaters and things like that. with Sedaris, he knew that his movies weren't going to go to movie theaters, and they did have some showings, like over in Europe and Japan and China and European markets. They got some screenplay and stuff there, but in America, they made them into some drive-in movies and stuff. But this was before corporations were running movie theaters, so a lot of these theater owners, that's kind of where Grindhouse came from. You had independent film theater owners that were just trying to get movies into theaters, and you had people that were making movies to get them into theaters. But nowadays you can't, all of the movie theaters are owned by big corporations. You'd never see a movie like this getting into one of these movies, one of movie theaters. So, but he knew that when he was making these movies, they probably weren't going to be Academy Award winning. He was just trying to have fun and then, get them released on home video, because this was the beginning of the age of home video. VHS was just becoming prominent, and you'd walk into a video store and there'd be, walls of what the hell, what movie is this, where people were just it was the beginning of the direct to video era. And he knew that was what his target was, and that was where he was going with it. Anything above and beyond that, he was like, yeah, this is awesome, but.
Well, and I have I have a friend, and this isn't a shorthand to tell a story about me, but I legitimately have a friend that would be like, oh, is there a sexy lady on the cover? What if we watched this movie? And it's like, he was making movies for that guy. And but he was very true to like the kind of movies he wanted to make, because I reading about him and like his wife, in the interview with his wife as well, he talked about Malibu Express he did with Hugh Hefner, and Hugh Hefner was kind of bummed because he wanted a little bit more romance in it, and Andy Sedaris was like, "Fuck you, I do action," and like that's great. Or like Showtime wanted at the time, they was like, "We'll just take whatever we want." Andy Sedaris premiere, it's got it's going to get butts and eyes on it. And they actually ended up walking away from the deal because they didn't like the cut. They wanted more nudity or something in there. And Andy Sedaris like, no, sorry. So he had a vision of what he wanted to do. And I gotta admire that you weren't just like, whatever, man, give me money. Yeah. You want more boobs? I'll put in more boobs.
Yeah. But at the same time, he didn't want to be disrespectful to any of the people that were in the movies. Mm-hmm. And if the women weren't comfortable with it or something like that, they'd do what they had to do. But another thing is, he was also great we're going to do this in 3 shots. We're going to do this in 3 scenes, first scene, second, we're going to take 3 different takes. Okay, that's it. Let's go. Move on. One of the things that Andy was famous for, it was Julia Strain, who popped up later in the movies. She's this big, tall, beautiful barbarian chick. She was in Hustler magazine.
Oh, that's the nunchuck lady that's in the background, right? That one? Yeah.
Yeah, she was the villain in the first movie, in one of the movies, and then after that, she was the hero in the other movies. And I believe that one of the movies, she blows up in a boat or something like that. That was the first movie she appeared in. But how she got involved was she'd saw him and she's like, hey, I want to do this. And she became really good friends with Andy's wife. And finally they said, all right, we'll put you in the movie. And then you had all these other, hustler pinups and stuff. They're like, hey, I want to do this too. I want to do this too. And he got to a point where he was like, well, why would I want to have real actors? I have these beautiful women. They're comfortable doing what I want them to do.
That's the thing about the kind of treatment. I started off the show talking about how I'm bored with 80s boobs after this. But he does, the women aren't treated as, as much as the women are objectified, they're not treated as
They are objectified, but they're on their own terms.
Because the thing is, the 2 lead, ladies in this, they're, making, small dick jokes and, just razzing people. And, they have... this could be an easy gender swap. It's not these delicate ladies doing lady shit. No, they're just they're busting balls and kicking ass. They're actually treated as weirdly, this movie passes the Bechdel test fucking 8 times over. This is actually a kind of other than the spank bank part of it, this movie's very respectful.
The only 2 characters that are not are the sleazy restaurant owner guy, which is played as a joke and he gets smacked down a ton, but he's a comic relief goofball. And the other one is Andy Sedaris. He shows up as he plays a role as there's this weird B story that involves a
sports tournament.
Yeah, sportscaster being down there interviewing football players. It would just completely unnecessary, completely adds nothing. But there's a bit with him. He's talking to this woman, Charlene, I think is her name. He's like, oh baby, I love you. And she's like, you tried to rape me last night. It's like, that was last night. Right now I love, that was oh God, that's actually really terrible.
I was pretty sure it was either him or the guy on the radio was Sedaris. I'm both of those feel like that's a director role. But that guy does the worst vaudeville prank in that, where in that scene, And he turns over, he's like, oh, baby, I'm done with that now. I'm beyond the powers of the flesh. And then he turns over to the person waiting on him. He goes, I'll have a pair of coffee. Like staring at her tits. And she's like, oh my God.
I got a big laugh out of that. That was so dumb.
All right.
That was like an airplane level joke.
I loved it. No, I mean, I loved
he
it, but
did
it's
those
so
on purpose because he was trying to let people know that he didn't take himself too seriously.
Totally.
He was also paying tribute to, he in his way, he was paying tribute to Alfred Hitchcock, is what he had said, because Hitchcock would show up in his movies playing off the wall characters, and he was like, I want to do the same thing. He goes, and this way people, he wanted people to know that he wasn't taking himself seriously as a filmmaker. So he would show up in his movies playing all these really off the wall, usually very sleazy-esque roles, which was kind of the inside joke of it, because apparently anybody that knew him knew that he was not that way. But that was like the inside joke of the industry and the people that were working with him. And the sports thing, and the reason that happened was because, again, he was working for Wide World of Sports, and that's how he got his start, was doing all of these races and sports shows. So he got to know these people, and he'd just be like, hey, I'm filming a movie, in Hawaii. You want to come out and pop up and be in the movie? Yeah, sure, we'll do that, because he already had the connections. Again, he was somebody who knew how to work his connections and make what he needed to happen.
He, in his sports time, he invented what they call the honey shot, which is when a camera guy will like scour the crowd and like zoom in on a pretty lady. That is an Andy Sedaris invention.
Wow.
From his time doing sports. As Arlene put it, is like he graduated with journalism and wanted to tell the whole story, what was going on off the field. And he also liked pretty ladies. So it's basically like that.
Apparently he knew Steven Spielberg pretty well. And the story goes that he had come up with the idea for Indiana Jones in one of the movies, pulling out the gun and not working or whatever. And I guess they kind of took that from him as a joke or whatever. And then later on, Spielberg and Harrison Ford concocted another story. And Sedaris was very vocal. He was like, that's bullshit. You totally know that I gave you guys that idea, which he was cool with. He didn't care that they took the idea. He's like, but the least you could have done was like, hey, gave me some credit or something for it or
so
something like that.
The dysentery story that Harrison Ford had the shit so bad that he does they do that scene where he shoots the guy when he does the sword act, that scene?
Yeah, I think that's the scene.
Shit.
I think it is.
I mean, okay, I didn't mean to say shit, but that shit story is bullshit, and it's actually wow. All right.
Well, I don't know how true that is. Sedaris had said that he had come up with the idea for
I believe Sedaris over Harrison Ford, because he's
I don't believe Harrison Ford poops. I don't know. Imagine.
Harrison Ford is a known troll. Like, that dude just says bullshit, and he'll admit to it later. He's like, oh yeah, I don't know, I was bored in an interview, so I just said that. Now people think it's true. So I'm totally down with it. It's actually Andy Sedaris came up with that.
I don't know how true it is, but that was apparently what
I like
said.
it better than real story.
Here's a weird little side story too. Donna Spear, really when she stopped making the movies, when she quit being the lead, that's when they really started to go downhill. And Andy and his wife they kind of stood back and they just became producers. And his son kind of took over. And they also moved the business down to Louisiana, because there's a point in the movies where most of them were filmed on Hawaii, and sometimes they left Hawaii and they would come back. But at a certain point, you can definitely tell that the movies changed, because him and his wife kind of wanted to retire and have a good time and stuff and just sit back. And then his son took over directing. And you can definitely tell everything about the movies is different. The locations were different. They weren't filming as much in Hawaii anymore. They were doing weird locations like Vegas and Texas. Big Pines restaurant down in, I think it's Texas. That restaurant is still there to this day, and people still make pilgrimages to it because of these movies. But once she left and they started getting these other people in, the movies really started to go downhill. And Donna Spear, she apparently had a lot of drug and alcohol problems, and I don't know for a fact, but I haven't read her books yet. But I think that was why she left the movies at that point, because her life was just so out of control. But it turns out, I was reading that she was one of Bill Cosby's early creepy catches.
Oh.
When she was 16 years old, Bill Cosby had started bringing her to his gigs and stuff, and he was basically like, sure, drink all the stuff you want to drink, do all the drugs you want to drink, just be quiet and be my little girl in the room or whatever. And years later, of course, she put two and two together and realized it. And after he got put in jail, she finally came out about it and was like, yeah, I was one of Bill Cosby's original first, creepy, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the term would be. He basically groomed her from when she was 16 years old. And the parents and nobody in the industry knew about it. They just thought that he was this guy trying to help her get into some kind of a career in Playboy or acting or whatever. There exists a picture out there where she's sitting with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby has a hat over his face. You can't see his face, but it's got like a cigar in the hat and the mouth. Yeah. And, she was one of Bill Cosby's, original, creepy little groomer things or whatever, or pedophilia kind of things. And she, after he got thrown in jail, then she came out about it and said, yeah, I was one of his first people, and people in the industry back it up. They're like, oh yeah, she'd be at the hotel rooms and stuff. He'd take her around the country for the shows and all of those kinds of things. And she was 16 years old. So it'd be like, yeah, here's drugs, here's alcohol. Let's go bang.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a piece
it makes
of
it even creepier. Absolutely. But I was just, again, when you start digging into these movies, the weird backstories and things that you find, it was like, when I saw that, I was like, whoa.
It's also just amazing that, like, okay, here's this movie that's just boobs and shit blowing up. And you're like, well, the maker of this is probably a sleazeball. I'm going to watch something wholesome like The Cosby Show. And then, like, turns out that Andy Sedaris is this nice guy, and Bill Cosby's
it's a weird Philip
monster.
K. Dickian kind of story.
Yeah. We should have put our faith in Andy Sedaris. We chose the wrong path.
So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you get again, I think almost all of them are on Tubi. They do get worse as they go along. I think after I can't remember what movie he quit directing, but he did come back before he died, and he did film the very last movie, which was Return to Savage Beach. And they finally explain what happened to Donna Spear. They walk into this room and there's a big RC airplane of the plane that they used to fly, and they imply that the plane crashed with her in it, and that's why the character wasn't in the movies anymore. Wow. It's in the very last movie.
We did skip just as far as the important kind of touchstones of this film. The big reveal that the lady that works at the restaurant that's is a crossdresser or whatever the proper phrase is.
Yeah. That's a reoccurring theme in a lot of his movies. You have these two doofus idiots that also dress up as women throughout the whole movie, and they cross some, like, that would never fly in today's
that guy
movies,
looks
ever.
fucking good. Like, that was really convincing. I mean, it's an 80s movie, so you kind of saw it coming. Not that that's only the purveyance of an 80s movie, but, like, man, that guy pulled it off, and, like, it was weirdly, like, not sensitively
we were like,
done,
is that
but it wasn't.
Dude?
It wasn't.
Is that a dude?
Yeah.
I was more just like that they're wearing a lot of foundation.
Yeah.
And I just kind of felt bad. But then I was like, oh, okay, now I see what's going on. Okay.
But there wasn't.
I'm like, well, if they're a drag queen, that's one thing, but it wasn't being portrayed. It was just being portrayed as something else.
Yeah. And it was like, it was also just that was it wasn't like, oh, gross, what a pervert. It was like, oh, what a clever bit of subterfuge.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Nowadays, if they were to do it, I would just make a drag queen the villain for that scene. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, if you're going to do that, just own it and get like a RuPaul or something, and don't try to hide from it. Be like, yeah, the person's a drag queen, but they're also, humanize it in some way. But again, this is the 80s. It was a totally different time. And you saw that kind of thing happen in a few of his movies. Those two henchmen kept popping up in other movies too. There was always like Beavis and Butthead doofuses.
Yeah.
Oh, those guys. Because the guy I love in this, that he looks like a bad guy from Double Dragon. The guy with the really swollen face at the end. When they go and like confront Mr. Chang in that building, and there's that weird Odo or whatever their names were in Double Dragon, those bloated face guys. That guy is
the guy that just basically needs an EpiPen.
Like
Bobo. Yeah.
His face is incredible. That scene should have a little heading at the bottom saying, "This movie ran short. It doesn't count as a feature unless we have this," because it is useless to the film.
Well, there's another movie that he does where it's got this like super attack helicopter, and they have this helicopter. They've got it all. It's like looks like Airwolf. It looks like Airwolf is a gyrocopter for what it is. But when you see the helicopter actually flying in the air, it's just an RC helicopter that they spiffed up and. They took, instead of rather actually having because of course you look at the helicopter, like there's no fucking way that thing's going to fly. It's not. But in the next scene they show it flying and shooting missiles and stuff like that. It's just an RC helicopter. And you kind of look at it, and if you don't know any better, you think, yeah, that's the helicopter because it's filmed with a blue sky background. So there's nothing in the shot to give it a size contrast where you can go, that's an RC helicopter. But because it's a Sedaris movie, and you know that all of his movies, even in Hard Ticket to Hawaii, there's a giant RC helicopter that lands, drops the diamonds off, and then flies away. Which I was like, how are they doing that? Because I know people that fly these helicopters. I used to work at a hobby shop. Like, no one's, you can't, unless there's a camera on there to see what you're doing. And this was the 80s. There weren't cameras on these little RC helicopters. You know, it's like, well, whoever's flying this thing should be able to see the girls walking up and picking up the diamonds off of it or whatever, you know? So you're watching that going, all right, whatever. Oh, you know what? Who cares? It's an RC gas helicopter. It's pretty big, whatever, you know? But when you see the other movie, and it's got the what's the guy's name? He's the black Chinese henchman who's been in all kinds of movies. I can't remember the guy's name.
Young or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, and he's in this again. You watch these movies, like, hey, that's such and such. I've seen that guy in this movie and that movie.
Yeah, he is.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've frequently joked with my buddies that we need to start a henchman hiring service where you can, like, it's like a temporary job agency. You can come up and be like, hey, I need I need some henchmen. Like, what do you guys have? Well, we're running a special on ninjas this week, and then you hire a bunch of ninjas to show up, or henchmen to show up, or
temp hench.
Lackeys or whatever. Yeah, temp hench, because they're going to get blown away anyways in the movie, especially with ninja movies. You know, you can never have too many ninjas.
Absolutely.
But we should start like a henchman rental service or something like that, you know, or a temporary henchman service, like you said, temporary henchman employment service. So, but that, you know what? I don't think there was any ninjas in the Sedaris movies. Now I think about it, I can't recall was there any movies with ninjas?
I think that's just ninja. I mean, I haven't seen all of them, but I mean, certainly ninja tools. But I don't know specifically ninjas. I think it's more just like, wouldn't it be cool if the people have ninja skills but aren't specifically ninjas?
I think they're always just henchmen, though. I don't think that Sedaris went down the ninja rabbit hole. Which, good for him, because everybody was doing that.
Far too covered up to be ninjas. Too many clothes on ninjas.
Yeah. Well, there's two hunky white guys going wah at each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that was whiffing at ninja. Yeah. I mean, that's basically Enter the Dragon.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he had also said in an interview, maybe his wife said it, that even he's like, they were like, yes, we have movies, the women and beautiful women with boobs and stuff, but we also have very hunky men because we want to give the ladies something to look at.
Yeah, that reminded me. So, why is there a sumo scene in this?
Why not? Well, you can have that funny bit
again. Wide World of Sports, he knew somebody.
Wide World of Sports, he knew somebody. I love it. That is the answer I wanted, because it's like that had to cost money. Like, you had to get two sumo guys. And it's like, oh no, that's Bob and Dave. I know him from my old sports days. Yeah,
exactly. Again, it's one of the reasons I respect the guy, because it was like, hey, we need to make this movie. This is how much money we got. Okay, let's figure out a way to do this. So when he wrote the movies, he probably, through his connections at Wide World of Sports or through his connections running sports shows, you're right. He probably just said, yeah, I know Bob and Jai Singh. We'll just give them a call and say, hey, you guys want to be in a movie? Yeah, sure. Come on down, And they filmed the scene, or they just showed up at one of the events that he was probably already producing for television anyways, and just brought his camera crew and said, all right, well, we're going to need you guys for this scene we're going to do 2 shots of this scene and we're done with it. It's probably how it happened.
Yeah, totally. I forgot about the sports aspect. The biggest laugh I had in this movie, and it's after the movie ended, is the shots they used in the during the credits, where it's normally like the highlight reel of the movie, and like 60% of them are just close-ups on tits. There is no hiding this. There's no equivocation. It's like, hey, remember that scene where they're like normally be like, oh, this is a super cool action scene. Nope, close-up of tits. Hey, look, close-up of tits near other tits.
If you enjoyed that, you should absolutely check out the end credit sequence to The Howling 2. It's amazing. I mean, watch the whole movie. It's great, but just that end credit sequence seals the deal.
This was
highly recommended.
This was impressive. Any other final thoughts on Hard Ticket to Hawaii?
If I were giving awards away for bad movies, well, I hate the term bad movies. I don't, because they are not great movies, but then again, I've had this conversation, the people who watch these movies, we watch these movies because we appreciate them on a different level. We know they suck. We know that they're not blockbuster movies, but we still watch them. It's a weird kind of S&M, self-deprecate, I don't know what you want to call it. But if we had some kind of an awards thing or something like that for these kind of movies, I would definitely give Andy Sidaris some kind of Lifetime Achievement Award for these movies that he made. Because, as we've said numerous times now, he had a vision, and he stuck with it. Even when he wasn't himself producing, like the main guy in charge of the movie, and him and his wife were still in the back producing it, he still from beginning to end, he has a style of movie making that he did, and he did a good series of movies. And I would definitely give him some kind of a lifetime achievement award or something. He's up there, in my opinion, with the great bad movie makers. You know, we said Russ Meyer, Godfrey Ho, the guy who, I can't remember his name, the guy who did Birdemic. Those movies are horrible movies. They're basically all, they've made 3 of them now. And even the movies that he's made that weren't Birdemic, he has a style, and if you can make it through them. Yeah, exactly. So, I love Andy Sidaris' movies. I really do. Even the bad ones I'll still watch. The only one, there's a couple of them that, I like them. I've watched them. I don't need to go see them again. But like I said, I've watched, whenever we bring somebody new into our fold of bad movie watching, I'll be like, no, you're going to watch Hard Ticket to Hawaii. This is a great place to start. Yeah. We're going to go from here. This is a great stepping board for your journey, and here's why. And a lot of my buddies are like, they either get it or they don't. And they're like, man, you're really into these shitty movies, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, but, there's so many things here. There's more to unpack than just a bad movie.
Yeah. So it's a particular style. It's not something that's like I said, I don't think it's as easy to find these days, these kind of movies. But yeah, it absolutely is its own thing. And I think, for, like I said, for earlier, there's a certain amount of nostalgia to it, but it is, if you are looking for a 80s action movie, just full of tropes and stuff like that, there you go. You got big hair, big boobs, explosions, ridiculous stuff, some sort of kung fu adjacent things. Hard Ticket to Hawaii is the way to go. Killer Snake too, thrown in there, just poisonous evil snake.
Yes.
Very realistic. Cancerous.
Python.
Okay, so recommendations for other stuff. I'm going to go first because mine is quick and John's going to yell at me, but I'm watching the Netflix version of One Piece, the live action one, and I think it is the best live action version of an anime I've ever seen. I think it gets the tone perfectly, but I've never read the manga, so I don't fucking know. I only know the anime. And ignore the way I said the A's and all of that, but I really like it. I think the kid that plays Luffy, he was in The Irregulars or some Marvel show that lasted 1 season that I really liked. He's terrific. The guy that plays Clown Guy was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's one of my favorite later season guys. Really like it. I haven't watched the whole season, but big thumbs up.
While I don't think that show should exist at all, I'm more just angry that you say it's the best adaptation of anime, having seen Speed Racer.
Oh, hey, to be fair, I forgot Speed Racer. So it is the second best live action version of that. No, you're 100% right. Totally. I was thinking of TV. I was thinking of more modern-y. No, you're 100% right. It is not nearly as good as the Wachowski Speed Racer, but it's very enjoyable.
Man, no love for Cowboy Bebop. I'm bummed. Wow.
I didn't hate the live action one, but I didn't think it did anything interesting enough to make me not I just would rather watch the anime. They did that side by side on Twitter and other places where they're like, hey, look at the original, look at what we're doing, and it was like, oh yeah, the thing that's all stylish and bright and colorful, and then your gray nonsense. Yeah, way to go, Netflix. I never checked it out. Not I watched 2 episodes and I finished everything, and I didn't finish the Cowboy Bebop live action. All right, I'm done talking. Somebody else.
For me, I've been getting into sort of prepping myself for horror in October. I've been dipping into some Italian giallo films, watching Dario Argento's Bird with the Crystal Plumage, which I enjoyed a lot.
That's a wild movie.
That's a wild movie. I actually haven't seen a lot of Argento's giallo. I've seen more of his supernatural stuff, which was only the 3: Suspiria, Inferno, and then I haven't seen the last one, The Mother of Tears, but
he's on different drugs than I am. That he falls into that category.
Yeah. It's so if on that tip, I also just watched, and I don't recommend this necessarily, but I watched Lucio Fulci's The New York Ripper, which is a crime movie about a killer that kills women and also talks like Donald Duck while doing so, and calls a detective to mock him in that voice. And it is one of the sleaziest movies I have ever seen.
Wow.
It's just.
Is that the one where the guy calls people he's like, I'm going to kill you. And he does it, he show his voice on the phone. He does a really bad voice or whatever.
No, I feel like there's a couple. I know the Fifth Chord kind of has that. This one is like, yeah, he doesn't necessarily call the women in advance. He just calls the detective. But like, it's very misogynistic and very gross, and just weird. But at the same time, like, if that's what you're going for, this is very much up your alley. Yeah, Giallo, check him out.
I'm going to go with, we've been on a blaxploitation kick lately. We fall down different rabbit holes, and we've also been on an old Jean-Claude Van Damme one, but that's another story for another show. I'm going to recommend that people go and see a movie called Three the Hard Way.
Three the Hard Way is terrific.
It's a fantastic movie. 1974, you've got Jim Brown in it, Fred Williams, Jim Kelly, the black kung fu master. This was probably one of his best movies next to Black Belt Jones. It is the best tropey blaxploitation movie that I think I've ever seen, and it's also the movie that who spoofed it? What was the spoof of this movie that was made later by the Wayans brothers?
Oh,
I can't remember.
I'm Gonna Get You, Sucko.
Yeah, that's what it was. Correct. It's basically three guys that are like, one of them is a pimp, one of them is a martial artist expert, and the other one is a record producer. And they find out that these white supremacist KKK people have come up with a drug that they're going to put into the water supply that only kills African American people. The white people it will leave alone, and they're going to release it in 3 different cities. So each of them has to go to a different city. One's Detroit. I can't remember the other two are. And they all have to go and stop these people. Then at the end, they all get back together again, and they go and storm the main bad guy's, mansion or whatever. And there's one of the best scenes is this plane lands, and this blue Ford van comes out and goes down and drops off this blue van. The guy opens up the back of the truck, and it's just full of machine guns and stuff. And you're like, why do you need that many guns? And they make fun of that, and I'm going to get you, sucker. Uh-huh. And also, the guy never reloads his gun in the entire movie. But you're like, why do you need that many guns? And plus, one of the guys in the movie is a martial arts expert, and he doesn't even use guns. Mm-hmm. So this van's got like 70 guns in it. They're all machine guns and stuff, and it's like, there's only 2 of you, And then the very next scene, it's a blue van, but it's a totally different van. It's like a GMC van or something like that. It's not the Ford Econoline van anymore. And you're like, what the hell? But fantastic movie.
Well, thank you very much, Rojan, for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for dropping all kinds of Andy Sedaris knowledge.
Oh, this has been a blast. I would love to do this with you guys again.
Yes, I'm glad John had someone to talk to that knows anything about movies for once.
It's weird. We started this. Like, I was never a film cinema guy. And we sat around with me and some buddies, and they had never seen, it was I think it was the Star Wars Christmas special. We started with that. And then from there, we started talking about Reefer Madness, and no one had seen that. So we watched Reefer Madness. And then the next thing I know, it turned into, well, what are we watching tonight? Well, what are we watching tonight? And we just kept finding these movies. And then it turned into, well, let's watch this Bollywood movie. Let's watch this blaxploitation. What's a blaxploitation movie? Oh, we got to watch this. What's like Swiss Play? Oh, that's the other movie. Mad Heidi is another movie that you guys should check out. It is fantastic. It is a modern movie. It does borrow heavily off of all the tropes of the exploitation grindhouse movies. It's probably one of the best. Yes, we know we're making a bad movie. We know it's ripping off, but we're doing that. We're not doing it because we're trying. We're doing it because it's an homage, and we love these movies and we appreciate them. Yeah, Mad Heidi is fantastic.
All right, just looking at the blurb about it, it looks insane, and I just encourage everyone to look it up yourself because I don't want to spoil here, but I am definitely curious.
It turns out that there is a genre of movie called Swissploitation.
Yeah,
and which I knew nothing about. Then you have Nunsploitation. It's a I mean, if you have the time, and with us, we just sit around and we all get high on weed and we watch these movies, and we've been going and we haven't turned back. And I think this is the 3rd podcast I've done about Sedaris and these kinds of movies, and I'm having a blast doing it.
That's preach the gospel of Sedaris. Get out there. And, it's nice you're out there doing that.
Rojan, hold on 1 second. Hey John, what are we watching next week?
Skinamarink.
We're watching Skinamarink. Everybody should watch that. It's a low-budget horror movie. That's all I know about it, except for that I'm pretty sure it's produced by Sharon Lois and Graham.
Bram.
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, that will not appear in there. It's one of my favorite horror movies of last year. I find it insanely scary. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but I think there's going to be a lot to talk about, and I very much enjoyed it.
I'm looking to be
Where
traumatized.
can people watch that at?
That's currently on Hulu. There are other places to find it, but I just came to Hulu, which is the easiest thing. I think I was watching it. When it first came out, and I'll get into this a bit more on the show. Like I watched it. It part of what its spread was that someone leaked it online, and that so much added to it of like finding a website and clicking on this what you could argue is a found footage movie, and it like, oh, here's this, like, I'm clicking on this link that's this portal to a nightmare, and watching that in the middle of the night just added to it being horribly scary rather than just like going to Netflix and clicking play. But
can I make a fun recommendation for you guys? Anybody listening?
Please do.
One of our favorite things to do is, because sometimes we'll imbibe a little bit too much into the THC. And sometimes we're just like, well, we need to find something to watch. Go on YouTube and do a search for it, and you can find there's just hours of these Grindhouse trailers. They're all strung together, one after another. And it's just because the movie trailers were much different back then.
Oh, yes. Nowadays,
you sit, blah, blah, movie trailer done. Back then, some of these movie trailers would be like 10 minutes long, and we'll be like, are we still watching the same trailer? They're basically giving you almost the entire movie in the trailer. And a lot of them, it's like the trailer for Machete Kills, and then they're like, well, let's actually make this into a real movie. But there's all kinds of just, couple of hour longs of just Grindhouse movie trailers all cut together. And if you're just looking for something to watch and just, in the background when you're doing something or whatever, throw that on there, because I found so many cool movies just through watching those. I found Stunt Rock through that. If you've ever watched a movie called Stunt Rock. Yes, Stunt Rock is. We could do a couple of different shows. We could absolutely, but that's how I found movies like Stunt Rock.
Brian
I found
Trenchard
Three
Smith,
the Hard Way.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you're into this stuff and you're looking for a way to find these movies, the problem is what made me think about this is there's a lot of times where we'll see a movie. Well, the new rule now is if we're going to watch these and somebody says we need to find and watch that movie, okay, you go and find it. If you find the movie somewhere, streaming somewhere, or if you find it, then we'll watch it. Because a lot of these movies, they look great, but when you actually try to go find them, you can't. They don't exist anymore. There's no copies of them or anything like that. That's how we found Wing Wing, if you know who Wing Wing is.
Oh,
you know who Wing Wing is?
Agent what is the movie? Agent 00.
For Your Size Only, I think it was.
Yeah. But yeah, he's a tiny man.
Oh, that guy.
Like
I've seen
tall.
the preview for one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. He was this little Malaysian guy that
For Your Height
he was in
Only.
For Your Height Only, that's what it was. He did a Western one too. He did a couple of different movies. We just recently did a show about that guy. We found a guy that lives in Australia who went hardcore into investigating who this guy was and pretty much brought him back out of obscurity. And he was just they were trying to do this big Malaysian film festival, and Ferdinand Marcos was trying to get people to come to the Philippines to make movies or what have you. And they threw this big, huge film festival, and all that came out of it was Wing Wing, this little 3.5 foot tall kind of joke martial arts super agent character. And they were pissed about that. They're like, this is what you're taking away from our country? And everybody's like, yeah, that's great. We've seen all your Malaysian cinema. We don't care, but we want this Wing Wing guy. But that's how I found these movies, was watching these Grindhouse movie trailers that you find on YouTube. They're great to just toss on, let them play, and just clean house. Or if you're having a party, throw it on in the background, or if you're just looking for new stuff to watch, or if you're into this stuff, just go to YouTube, type in Grindhouse movie trailers, and if you see them, they'll have them like 1 hour, 2 hours, or chained together. Give them a watch. They're hysterical.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And yeah, like you said, find all kinds of gems that you might not have seen before, and get all kinds of, maybe learn that you like a certain style of movie that you've never had exposure to.
Yeah, I think we're done.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Rojan.
Yes.
No problem. Yeah, if you get a chance, somebody is interested, go on if you can find it, or if you know some, see if you can find Cinema Space LE Space Bad. And it's just a Facebook group that's dedicated just for movie posters, old movies like this. Fun, bad cinema or classic movies. It doesn't have to be bad like Blade Runner. Stuff like that can go on there. The original Alien. And that's what the Facebook group's for. There's no drama in it. It's just people, I always drop movies in there we're watching, and I try to drop a link where I watched it at. So if somebody wants to see it, they have a place to go see it or whatever, rather than just like, well, yeah, well, here's a movie, it's bad, here's a movie poster. I try to provide a place for people to actually go and watch these movies if we watch them.
Yeah, I've been on
Fantastic.
Cinema Labad for a little while now, and I can attest to the fact that it is a rare drama-free zone on Facebook. It is, it's weirdly lack of arguing, which it almost makes me suspect that it's only like one guy with 40 accounts, but it's.
You want to close out the show?
Oh, didn't we already close out the show?
No, I mean, not really. You say, well, thank you for listening. You can find us online at John Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
But
you can
no
decide
one's,
this
no
chunk
one's
out.
never
Go
going to
ahead.
do that. Let's face it.
Okay, or
we've got
don't, whatever.
we've got 25 people on our Twitter. Like, Twitter sucks dick. We don't have a backup. Like, forget it.
I also have 2 other podcasts. I still do Project Archivist on occasion, and I also do another show called Old Nerds Drinking, which is just me and my buddies sitting around drinking, talking about nerdy stuff.
Check those out.
Oh, yeah. Having Rogan plug things. That's a good idea. It's been a while since
Yeah.
we had a guest. I forgot how this works. Actually, a guest that's like does anything. We usually just have like some guy John knows. Like, I forgot.
Yeah. That's it. That's what they plug is knowing me. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, listen to Rogan's other podcasts. They're better than ours.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone.
All right,
Goodbye.
Bye.